Hello world, hola todo el mundo. This is Dr. Ken speaking today, and it is Monday, June 5th, 2023. And I'll tell you, for all you up north folks, I'm in Houghton Lake. If you know RJ's Market, which everyone here knows about RJ's has two buildings. One is an enormous cabin looking building full of all the delis and cheeses and so forth. And the building next to it is, same owners, R&J's. They have souvenirs, they have an ice cream parlor, they have lots of shirts and hats and knickknacks for your cabins and whatnot. There's always windmills out front, and for to put over the wells, and statues of bears and moose, and stuff like that, right? Knicky-knack stuff to put in front of your front yard and whatnot. Well, RJ's has the best everything. RJ's has the best meat. It has the best kebabs. It has the best deli. It has the best egg salad. It has the best potato salads. They have two or three different kinds of, maybe four different kinds of potato salad. They have a potato salad that's a dill, like it's got lots of dill pickles in it. They have all kinds of potato salads, all kinds of fresh meat. They have the jellies and jams made in the Keweenaw Peninsula. They have a big Upper Peninsula sign on it. I think probably 85-90% of that store is made in Michigan, and everything's the best, and you get the pattern. It's the best. So I rode my bike for 27 miles tonight, and I was got a hankering for something for dinner. It was after 6 p.m., so it was about 6:20. So I went over to R&J's, and they have new hours, so they're only open till 6 Monday through Thursday, but they're open much later on the weekends. And geez Louise. So I had to go over to the other building, same place, and they do have lots of foods and whatnot there. So I happen to be a lover of dill pickles. I may kill my mother and your mother just for a dill pickle. I love dill pickles. But anyway, so I go over to the pickle counter, which was probably a bad choice, because then all these desires for dill pickles, there's different kind of dill pickles there. So I found this right here. It's called Flaming Dill Freaking Pickles from Allgraz, Michigan. It's near Bay City. It's Michigan-made pickles, right? It says Flaming Dill. This stuff is the most delicious dill pickle. I mean, if you like dill pickles in general, the taste of the dill. When I grew up, we had a quarter of an acre yard on Highview Street, 22031 Highview Street, Mount Clemens, Michigan. And exactly half of that backyard was tilled up for a garden in the summers, and boy, did we garden. My mom and dad were always busy raising 6 kids. They were very, very busy, and my dad did go out there and help us till the garden, rototill everything, and help us plant stuff. But my grandfather would come over a lot, especially in the summer. We were off school, and he'd help us weed, or he'd give us advice. We meaning my sister and I, the two oldest. And I have fond memories of, I'm sure my sister does too, of grandfather, grandpa. Grandma would be in there knitting and crocheting, talk to my mother, drinking coffee. They have little women's conference all the time. They're always talking and knitting and crocheting. And my grandpa was out in the backyard. He had to show my sister and I something. And, he would go through and tell us this bug and that bug, and, plant more marigolds around the tomatoes. The marigolds keep a certain bug away from the tomatoes. And look, this tomato has a little bit of mold. This is because this, that, and the other. I don't know. My grandfather, may he rest in peace, knew everything about gardens. And he lived in East Detroit. I guess they changed it to East Point now. But my grandparents lived in East Detroit. And their backyard, they had a smaller yard, but their backyard, my father used to say, was the most perfect garden in the world. There was no weed anywhere. The ground was perfectly tilled, so you could lift it up. It's perfectly black and fertile, and you could lift it and watch it fall through your fingers. And my mother and dad would go over there and say, God, this garden, because my grandfather was retired and he was working that garden every single day, eh? But my grandfather, we used to plant dill. We'd have rows and rows of dill in between other rows in our garden. And the smell of the dill, there were a lot of smells. There were the marigolds in the garden to attract the bees, and Grandpa wanted the marigolds planted around certain kind of plants to chase the bugs away. There'd be this sweet smell, and the next thing you'd smell the dill. Oh, the dill was so delicious, the smell of the dill. And my grandpa in his garage in East Detroit had these big clay, I forgot the word, enormous vats made of clay, and you'd put the cucumbers of a certain size in there, and you'd let them age for, I forgot how long, 6 months, 8 months, I forgot how long they were sitting in there. My dad eventually got a bunch of those as well, and we would have cheesecloth and rubber bands and cover them up so critters wouldn't get into it. And these cucumbers would soak in dill, the fresh dill that we had grown in our garden, and various other things my dad would put in there, my grandpa would put in there. And when the time was up and they were they were completely pickles, oh, we had great picnics and family reunions, and we would make these pickles. We would cut them up and dice them, make the most delicious potato salad you ever tasted. I would mix it into egg salad too. Some people thought that was disgusting, but I just love dill pickles that much. And I just have fond memories of the beautiful dill, which apparently is an herb, the smell of it. And there were times when you'd go into our garage, we had a 2-car garage, and the smell was so delicious. During deer season, my dad would bring home deer, and my uncle, may he rest in peace, was a butcher, and so they would hang the deer, the bucks, does, whatever, from the rafters, and they would slaughter them, cut them into steaks, and grind them into burgers, whatever they did with the deer, the venison. And so, even though the venison was delicious, the garage really smelled like blood and stuff for a long time, and it would stay in the concrete. And we would try to clean it with concrete cleaner. But there's something about when you open up those crocks, or I'm sure my friend Janice will watch this video and she'll know the name for this big clay thing where you put the cucumbers in there. And whatever smell was left over from blood from deer season, whatever it was, wasn't a good smell. You would have this smell of dill would permeate the garage. So our garage growing up in Michigan, downstate, was sometimes the smell of meats, sometimes the smell of dill and pickles being made. There were all manner of vegetables. My mother and father would make spaghetti sauce and ketchup and whatnot from the tomatoes from our garden. We had tomatoes coming out of our ears. Literally, there were times when we had all this big rabbit project, and we got a pet rabbit that ended up being pregnant, unbeknownst to us. And long story short, we ended up with about 200 rabbits. My father kept adding on rabbit cages, and all of that rabbit droppings doesn't have to age, doesn't burn roots. So you can put it directly into the garden, into the soil. And our soil was incredible in that garden. And we probably planted too many tomatoes. And there were times when the tomatoes overflowed into the garage, and my brothers and sisters and I were sent with big brown grocery bags full of tomatoes to the Logie's house next door, the Hazelhuns down the road, whatever, up and down the neighborhood on Highview Street, giving away big brown bags full of tomatoes, because the fear was that they would go bad. They'd get overripe and go bad and get worms or something before we had a chance to stew them and cook them and do whatever my parents were always doing with the tomatoes, making homemade macaroni and cheese with layers of noodles and cheeses and more tomatoes and more different kind of cheese and different kind of noodle, and it was baked in the oven, and that what they called macaroni and cheese was really, it was like a lasagna without meat, because lasagna has meat and cheese. This was totally milchig dairy, and I'm talking about the so-called macaroni and cheese, really, which it was treated like a lasagna but without meat, right? It was just full of different cheeses and noodles and baked and tomatoes and whatnot. And so yeah, I'm rambling now about gardens growing up. I'm going to have those gardens soon as well. I'm actually going to, my plan is to build a greenhouse when I recover from all these expenses of building my house. I mean, I'm almost on the verge of going broke over here. So when I recover from all these expenditures from my new house, I will eventually build a greenhouse. And I'll extend my growing seasons into the winter in that way. But in tying up this 10-minute video, you got to get the Flamin' Dill Pickles at R&J's. These will knock your socks off. It is dill on steroids. I'm telling you, you could resuscitate the dead. You could resurrect the dead. Someone recently died in a car accident, God forbid, chas v'shalom. You go over there, someone's hit by a car, like a miracle. It's a nest. You take one of these pickles, these Flamin' Dills, and you put this in the victim's mouth, and he comes out of a stupor and he walks around. It's like a miracle from Hashem. It's just an amazing thing. These Flaming Dills at R&J's are the best dill pickles I've ever had in my life. And if I could communicate to my grandparents from beyond the grave, which, by the way, is forbidden. It's in the Tanakh. You are not allowed to ever talk to the dead. It's possible to talk to the dead. We are just forbidden from ever talking to the dead, from going over to the next, from speaking to the next world. But in my fantasy world, if I were able to talk to my grandfather and grandmother, I would tell Grandpa about these Flamin' Dills from R&J's. And my grandpa and grandma loved Houghton Lake as well. Take care and ciao.